Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Beware the Board, a horror podcast where we watch a randomly selected horror movie every single week. I'm Bob.
I'm Ben.
Hey, Ben.
Welcome to episode 99.
99. It's 100 next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's our wrap up. So that's less exciting than this episode.
What? Okay, bro. You're telling me we're not going to do anything special for episode 100?
I mean, we'll probably talk about the podcast and stuff, but
Isn't that what we do every week?
But that's what we do every week. So this is kind of more exciting because it's like our penultimate episode.
Was the podcast ending at 100?
Well, no, it's our penultimate episode to the 100th episode.
Okay, you got me scared there, like you were gonna reveal something on the 100th episode. You were just gonna end the show.
I don't know. You started the podcast and you were like, we should end the show on 100 episodes.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Well, no, I think I said I don't think we're gonna make it to 100 episodes. I think I said max is like 40, and then we got to like 50, and I went, "Damn, we're still going, huh?" That's crazy.
In either case, we got one episode left this season.
Yeah, one movie left.
One movie left.
One movie. Unless there's 6 movies in this one spot.
It's a kaiju spot.
It is a kaiju spot. But before we get to watching Godzilla, which I assume was the last spot, I'm just gonna put that out there. I've been saying that the whole season.
It could be something else.
It could be something else, but you would be doing, I think, yourself and me a disservice. And you'd make some other people very angry. Namely, my friend Brian, who's very excited for us to watch Godzilla. Anyway, there's only one thing I want to talk about this week before we get to the movie and the podcast part of the podcast. The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs has been renewed for season 7 at Shudder.
I did see that.
They are getting another season, which is not surprising because, I mean, it's extremely popular. Tons of people love it. But I'm very, very excited about it because I like Joe Bob. And when he does movies I've seen before, I actually get to watch him. Now, I brought this up because I wanted to talk about something else Joe Bob related. This is just the news part. Did you watch any of the night marathon that they did? Like the 6-movie special that they did?
No, not yet.
I haven't watched it either. I was just curious if you'd seen any of it because I know you usually get to actually watch it. I do not.
Yeah, I do sometimes. I've been busy recently.
Yeah.
Haven't really had a lot of movie watching time.
Yeah, me either. Well, outside of the podcast.
Outside of the podcast. Yeah, we do this every week.
Yeah. This is like dedicated time, but like, you know.
Yeah. In either case, you got anything else?
No, just check out Joe Bob Briggs, The Last Drive-In. Super good show.
Yeah. You can go see his live show, too.
Yeah.
It's also really good when he does it. In either case, ready for the last spot? It's Kaiju's.
Yeah, man. What are we watching for this episode?
We are watching Mothra.
No, we're not.
We're not. I do have Mothra in the other
Do you really?
room, though.
That's
yeah.
hilarious.
So we're watching Godzilla.
Hell yeah.
Which maybe same franchise.
Don't they fight at some point?
They do fight at some point. They're made by the same company, so kind of.
Yeah.
But we're watching Godzilla from 1954, so the original one.
Fuck yeah.
Kind of what everyone thinks of when you say kaiju films. So
yeah, for sure.
it would kind of be weird for us not to cover it.
Exactly.
If you're not familiar with Godzilla, and you are familiar with Rugrats, Reptar.
Yeah, same guy.
By the way, have you ever seen the old, I think it's a Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon?
No. That sounds cool.
Okay, it's not great, but I'm bringing this up because the way Godzilla looks in that is basically just Reptar from Rugrats.
Yeah, okay. Oh my god, it is. You're not joking. I thought you were fucking with me, but no.
And he has fire breath.
Because I think the only difference is Reptar from Rugrats has what, orange fins or something, right?
I think they're purple.
Are they purple? I knew they were a different color than green. I guess I associate orange with
Reptar.
Yeah, there's Reptar.
I don't know. I wanted to bring that up because I saw that for the first time the other day, and I was like, wow, that's Reptar.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be crazy of us not to cover Godzilla in the kaiju movie franchise or kaiju category because it has spawned probably the biggest kaiju movie franchise out of all of them. It is the most culturally significant and prolific.
Well, he's the most well-known.
Yeah.
He has American movies. He has Japanese movies. Sure, there's a bunch of ripoffs from other countries.
Oh, for sure.
Like Gorgo.
Gamera. Well.
Gamera. Yeah, that's also Japanese. In either case, we'll get into it. Description. Gorilla whale.
What the fuck?
Do you not know that?
Gorilla whale?
Yeah, gorilla whale.
What does that have to do with Godzilla?
So Godzilla is the Americanized version of his Japanese name, which is Godzilla, which is the combination of the words for gorilla and whale.
I had no idea. I was so fucking confused.
Yeah, he's a gorilla whale.
What?
So my assumption here is it's partially from the fact that he walks on two legs,
Sure, like a gorilla.
kind of like a gorilla, but he's semi-aquatic, kind of like a
A
whale.
whale?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I could see it. It was very startling for you to say gorilla whale.
Yeah, I thought you knew that. It's
No,
kind of
I
like
had no idea.
it's kind of a fairly well-known fact that Godzilla is like a gorilla whale.
That's hilarious. I think that's the name of the episode now.
Length, it's 1 hour and 36 minutes long.
Oh, it's longer than I thought.
Fairly long. It's not rated.
Oh, thank God.
Review scores. IMDb gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
That's pretty good.
Tomato Meter gave it a 94%.
Hell yeah, dude.
And an audience score of 89%.
I'm excited for this one.
For wins, it's got 4 wins, 2 nominations. That's awards. Notable actors. Akira Takarada as Hideto Ogata. They played Yoshimura in Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. Do you not know that
No.
one?
No.
Okay. Momoko Kochi as Emiko Yamane. She was Hiroko Iwamoto in The Mysterians. Akihiko Hirata as Dr. Daisuke Sarazawa. He was a samurai in Sanjuro. Takashi Shimura as Dr. Kyohei Yamane. He was Kanbei Shimada in Seven Samurai. Fuyuki Murakami as Dr. Tananabe. He was Dr. Nobu Kawanami in The Mysterians. Sachio Sakai as Hagiwara. He was the second coolie in Seven Samurai. Ren Yamamoto as Masaji Yamada. He was commander of Operation Burial in King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Oh, okay.
Didn't know that was a movie.
Did not.
Toyoaki Suzuki as Shinkichi Yamada. They were Clerk B in A Wife's Heart. Torinosuke Ogawa as the president of the Nankai Company. He was magistrate of the bridge barrier in The Hidden Fortress. Hiroshi Hayashi as the chairman of Diet Committee. He was the weak Ronin in Seven Samurai. Seijiro Onda as Oyama. He was a Diet Committee member. He was the second Miki party member in Throne of Blood. Kinsugai as Ozawa. He was also a Diet Committee member. And he played Kikue Amamiya in The Funeral. Kokuten Kodo as the Old Fisherman. He was Old Man Gisaku in Seven Samurai. Haruo Nakajima as Godzilla slash power station worker, because he did both. And by Godzilla, I mean he's the guy in the suit.
Okay, yeah.
He was also a bandit in Seven Samurai. And then Katsumi Tezuka as the other Godzilla actor. And he was also Hagiwara's editor. And he would go on to play Godzilla again. He was, well, not Godzilla again. He played Inkirasu in Godzilla Raids Again.
Huh.
So another of the kaiju in the Godzilla franchise.
That's cool.
If you couldn't tell, lots of Japanese actors.
Yep.
Because this is a Japanese movie. Also, a lot of people from Seven Samurai.
Yeah, that was
Which
a lot
is-
of people.
Great movie.
I've never seen it.
Okay. I figured as much. So that's like kind of one of the most famous samurai movies of all time.
We should watch it off the podcast.
We probably should watch it at some point. Directors Ishiro Honda. He's also directed Matango. Do you know Matango?
Have we talked about that before?
We've talked about it before. It's a weird mushroom movie.
Oh, it is the weird mushroom movie that my friend Brian recommended we watch.
Yes. Shocker that Brian's the one who recommended
Yeah,
it.
shocker.
He's done a bunch of stuff related to Godzilla, but he's also done some other weird stuff like Matango. So I thought I'd mention that one. Writers, Takio Murata. He also wrote Jujin Yuki Otoko. He did the screenplay for this movie. Another writer's Ishiro Honda, so the director. He's also written Tokyo no Hito Sayonara. He also did the screenplay. And another writer's Shigeru Kayama. They wrote The Mysterians. They have a story credit for this. And the last kind of writer on this is Tomoyuki Tanaka. He wrote The War in Space, and he has a story and producer credit. Budget's estimated at 100 million yen, which I think at the time was roughly $277,000.
That's like nothing, man.
Yeah, and that's like including production and marketing.
That is dirt cheap.
So that's not a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money, but for post-war Japan.
Yeah, I was about to say they did not have a lot of money.
The box office estimated at 183 million yen,
God bless.
which I think again is about 508,000 USD.
I mean, they made more than double their budget.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
Country of origin, Japan, also known as.
Ooh.
These are going to be some fun ones. The working title. Do you want me to give you the Japanese or just the American?
I don't speak Japanese,
Or just
man.
the English, whatever. The working title in English was The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Jesus Christ. Didn't we just watch that?
We did watch that literal movie. And then the other working title in Japan was Project G,
Project G goes hard. I kind of like Project
which
G.
is also pretty good. Tagline, Godzilla, a weapon of science, a great battle of wonder and terror. I think that might have been the tagline. It was in Japanese.
Did you translate it?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
I did these notes like 10 weeks ago now.
It's true. It's been like 2 months, hasn't it?
It's hard for me to remember where I got any of this stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, so let's get into some cool facts for this film. Special effects were created by Eiji Tsuburaya, who is often considered the father of tokusatsu, which we've talked about before. I think we talked about it on our last kaiju film.
Probably.
Do you remember what it is?
It's like Japanese movies that rely on practical effects, right?
Yeah, it's a term for live-action films or television programs that make heavy use of practical effects and usually coming out of Japan. Think Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Or kaiju films. Guys in rubber suits. Classic stuff. But yeah, Tsuburaya is usually considered the father of that genre and like a pioneer of the Japanese special effects industry. So really, really cool dude. Got really, really famous from this movie. Go figure. In either case, this film specifically is notable for pioneering a technique as suitmation, which is summarized simply as guy in a rubber suit stomping around a miniature set. That's, the fancy way of putting it. Suitmation makes it sound a lot cooler.
It makes it sound a lot more complicated
Than it actually is. It's really cool, but it is a very simple thing. I think the only hard part of that effect is you usually have to slow down the footage afterwards to make it feel like the thing that is really big is moving
slower.
Yeah, essentially. In either case, I think it is worth noting that while this film did pioneer suitmation techniques, that wasn't their original intention. They did originally want to do a stop motion film.
Oh, man.
But they obviously did not have the budget for that. Assumedly, they just wanted to do the Japanese version of Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Yeah.
But they could not. So they did Guy in a Rubber Suit.
And you know what?
Aren't we
worked out.
thankful for that?
Yeah.
I think Godzilla would have been really, really cool as a stop motion creature.
Agreed, but
I don't think we would have gotten all the subsequent kaiju films the way we did without having him be a guy in a rubber suit. You win some, you lose some.
Thank God.
Silver
for the guy in the
lining.
rubber suit.
Kind of moving on. While this film is like insanely well regarded nowadays, I think it's important to note that it did receive like a mixed critical review upon its release.
I mean, that makes sense.
As is the case oftentimes with a lot of movies that are well regarded nowadays. I mean, we covered The Thing earlier this season. John Carpenter's The Thing, not the 2011 Thing.
Which was regarded poorly and is a bad movie.
But like, that's a good example of a film that was shit on back in the day. But in either case, this film received mixed critical reviews, but was still a financial success at the time, which is kind of interesting.
It is interesting.
I mean, I think that's kind of the classic, this is a popcorn flick. Like, people enjoy going to see it.
Yeah, and the critics probably were like, this is fine, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know how they came to that conclusion, but
I don't either.
In either case, this film ended up being the 8th most popular film in Japan that year.
Wow, that's pretty sweet.
Which is pretty cool for a shitty little monster movie, right?
Yeah.
In either case, following this film's release in Japan, it was re-released in America.
Oh.
As is the case with a lot of, again, kaiju films around this time. It was heavily re-edited and then like Americanized into that release. So that film came out in 1956, unlike this one's 1954 release, and was titled Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the American release version. And as you know, this film spawned a number of sequels.
A lot.
And interrelated movies. There is obviously Godzilla films in the Godzilla franchise that are like Godzilla versus Mothra, right? But then there's also like some interrelated movies. So like Mothra has its own film,
Yeah.
and then they made that movie, and then they eventually had Godzilla versus Mothra. So it's a really, really big franchise, especially if you count all those interrelated things. And it's so big, in fact, that it's actually recognized by the Guinness World Records as the longest running film franchise in history.
I was about to say, that makes sense because this year, Godzilla -1 literally just came out.
Yeah, I mean,
they just released a film as the year we're recording this fucking episode.
we're at 70 years now, Bob. 1954 to 2024.
Exactly. It has to be. Nothing else has been spanning this many. I think that's attribute. I think that can be attributed to how cool Godzilla is. I think that's the big one for me.
Yeah, it's impactful, and it's gone a long, long time. But yeah, that's all I really have for now.
Okay. I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, I think the only other thing we should mention is maybe the studio that this comes out of.
Oh, sure.
Because we did mention for Gamera,
Mm-hmm.
but this is Toho.
Mm-hmm.
In either case, though, we're gonna go watch it now.
Yeah. Well, see you guys in a minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We just finished watching Godzilla from 1954 because apparently there's more than one movie just called Godzilla.
I think.
That's fucking stupid.
I assume there is.
You know what?
Probably.
We're gonna pull up the Godzilla franchise. But before I do that, how do you like the movie?
I liked it. I thought it was really good. I almost said this during the movie, but I stopped myself. I looked at him and said, you know what, Ben? I get it. I get why Godzilla has a massive franchise. This is the best kaiju movie we've seen so far.
Yeah. Remember when you were so confident when we finished watching?
Now,
Gamera?
I will say this. I like Gamera more than Godzilla, but I get why Godzilla has a long-running franchise and is like super popular because this movie is better than Gamera. But I like Gamera more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair. This movie's great.
This movie's fantastic. This is a great movie.
Do you want me to show you the set?
Sure, yeah.
Go ahead and look.
Holy shit. That looks fucking sweet, bro.
So if anyone's curious, I got the Godzilla set from the Criterion Collection. So you get all the Showa era films.
Why is it in it's in like a book.
And then they have different pages on all the different films in the Showa era collection.
Whoa, this is so fucking cool. How much did that cost you?
Yeah, $100.
That's not bad. For how many movies? Like,
All the Showa era ones.
a lot of movies.
Yeah.
No, that thing is so fucking rad, bro. Holy shit. Totally worth it.
Thought we should do that since we did it last time with the
Gamera stuff?
Gamera stuff. So that is Godzilla, Godzilla Raids Again, King Kong versus Godzilla, Mothra versus Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Invasion of Astro Monster, Abira Horror of the Deep, Son of Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters Attack, and then I think it's Godzilla versus Hedorah, Godzilla versus Gigan, Godzilla versus Megalon, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Holy shit, that is a fuckload of movies.
So it's all 15 of the Showa era films.
It's a pretty good price for real.
Yeah. In either case, I guess we can get into the movie now, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. As always, recommend you go watch this film before we talk about it,
Sure.
because that's the best way to watch a film is without spoilers. But also because I think most people think they know what Godzilla's going to be like. They don't actually know what the 1954 Godzilla is going to be like.
That's so true.
So take it from Bob. He fell
That's
into that
so
camp.
true. I was like, damn, this movie's pretty sweet. And then I was like, oh my God. I'm not going to spoil how it ends. But I'm not going to spoil what I'm about to say, but keep going.
That being said, we're going to do a brief description, then we'll get into it. Godzilla is about Godzilla. Essentially, he's this giant monster from the deep, a gorilla whale, some might say. And he's awoken by H-bomb testing,
Yeah.
and he comes out of the deep and ends up destroying Japan.
Yep.
A little bit. And then it's Japan's response. It's like, how do we deal with the Godzilla problem?
Yeah. More than a little bit. Tokyo is in shambles.
Tokyo might be a little fucked up. In any case, if that sounds good, check it out. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth a watch. With that being said, you ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right.
let's start with what I was going to say a second ago. This movie is so fucking sad. I was coming in like off camera, being like, "Oh, this movie's gonna be fun. I'm watching Godzilla blow some shit up, do crazy shit." And I did see that, and then people were like, "Oh, this is truly horrific what he's doing to Japan." And I was like, "You guys are so right. Why am I so sad now? This is not a fun movie. I mean, it is a fun movie, but also, it's so much like more grounded and realistic than the other ones." In the fact that, like, oh, I feel bad that these people are being murdered by a giant lizard right now.
Yeah. So the thing that needs to be said about the original Godzilla film, because I think it's something that people tend to forget if you're more familiar with the franchise as like a cultural thing than you are with the original film, is that this is coming out of 50s Japan, which just finished World War II. They just got nuked. So they just suffered a very, very bad national tragedy. They're still dealing with like fallout situation. And so what the original Godzilla film is essentially a very large discussion on the effects of nuclear bombs and nuclear fallout.
I mean, it's super anti-nuke in its messaging.
And so the whole film is, like Bob said, super anti-nuke. Godzilla is a very thinly veiled, reference to nukes themselves. I mean, he's straight up radioactive.
Yeah.
But, more importantly than that, we have a lot of people that are essentially dealing with the problems associated with fallout and stuff. Lots of people dying. Lots of people are like, oh, yeah, I just barely escaped Hiroshima like 10 years ago. Now I have to deal with Godzilla? What the heck? And yeah, it's just a very grounded, somber film.
Yeah. Lots of, like, really... what's the word I'm looking for? Like, quiet choral music that is very, like, sad throughout the film. And it's just like, God damn, this sucks, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think the line that really sends it home, at least for me, and I think it's probably the one that really pushed Bob over the edge, is there's one point and it's Godzilla's rampaging through the city, and you see this woman like huddling in the corner with her kids, and she's just like, "We're gonna join Daddy soon."
And Godzilla's just like blowing shit up, killing people, wrecking the place. Like, I was just like, God damn. Like, I don't know. All these other kaiju films were treated like Gamera the Giant Monster. It was like an action sort of kids movie. Like, it's fun and it's supposed to be like a giant monster movie, and it's very different. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was very much like a sci-fi film in a lot of ways, like an investigative sort of sci-fi piece. So like all that stuff didn't really hit as hard, but this movie just leans into it super heavy, and it works. Like, it really, really gets the tone across.
Yeah, and again, I think it's because of the time period this comes from and exactly where it's coming from, because it's a place that just went through a very similar tragedy, and I think it's hard for them to do a script like this and not work those factors in, especially because everyone alive at the time this movie would have been produced would have been around for that. I mean, it's functionally speaking very similar to how films changed after 9/11 and the U.S., like tonally. It's also probably why the film didn't do amazing. If I had to guess from a critical response, it was probably a little bit
too sad. Or maybe too on the nose.
Too on the nose and just too in your face with something that would have been probably a really big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it probably was a little too soon for real. But I mean, looking at it from our perspective, but 70 years later or whatever, like, this movie, it hits hard, but it works.
Because it's a time capsule of all the fears and everything that would have been associated with the stuff happening at the time.
Also, seeing 1950s Japan is super cool.
Oh yeah,
from
it
a modern
been,
perspective,
like fully industrialized yet.
Yeah, it's super rad.
So
super
everyone's wearing
to
like
look at.
traditional garb still, at least somewhat. And then taking a brief backtrack, you mentioned how this is very different from Gamera the Giant Monster. That's because that comes out way after this movie. So around the time that came out, I believe Son of Godzilla was the film that was coming out in the Godzilla franchise. So it's just a very different time period in both franchises, and by that point in time, Godzilla had fully switched over to like, I'm a fight other monsters kind of stuff, and not just like destroy the city that we see in this one. So there's a reason those two films are very different. And then Beast from 20,000 Fathoms is, like you said, an actual sci-fi film rather than kind of a more traditional kaiju film like we're used to. With that being said, are you okay moving on from the tonal stuff?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Then I think first thing to discuss here, because I think it was a big sticking point for Gamera. Was it Gamera the giant monster?
Yeah.
Instead of Gamera the invincible. The big sticking point for Gamera was the human characters. They sucked in that film.
They did suck in
Especially
that movie. Don't say it.
the child.
Okay, bro.
I almost said Toshio, but that's
not his name.
not his name. But the human characters in that film sucked. Human characters in Godzilla, really good.
They're surprisingly good.
Essentially, Godzilla in of itself is a piece about humans struggling with essentially a natural disaster.
Yeah.
And I think everyone does a great job. But I want to note that we basically have a cast of maybe 4 main characters, 5. We have our doctor. Do you remember what his name is?
No.
He's a paleontologist.
Yep. You're
I
right.
forget his name. Was it Kyohei?
Nope.
Tanabe?
Maybe.
Oh, it was probably Yamane.
To
Right.
be honest, I'm really bad at remembering names when we watch these Japanese films.
That's fair. Yeah, no, he was Dr. Kyohei Yamane. He's the paleontologist. He has a daughter. Her name's Emiko Yamane. Then there's Hideto Ogata, who's
Yeah.
like the male lead for the daughter and is seems like Coast Guard guy, search and rescue.
Yeah, he works. Yeah, it's the Coast Guard, I think.
There's Dr. Daisuke Sarazawa, who's like the mad scientist with an eye patch.
That's
Which-
very true.
Eye patch is a great touch. And then we don't really see too much of these last 2 characters. There's Hagiwara, who's like a reporter that gets featured a couple times.
Yeah, he's around.
He's not really around too much except for in the beginning. And then Shinkichi, who's like a teenager.
Yeah, that they just sort of picked up.
Picked up a little bit. But he's featured, at least in the emotional scenes, very heavily in the
Yeah, I was about
beginning.
to say, he's pretty prominent in the beginning of the movie.
But yeah, I thought out of all those characters, they all did really great jobs.
No, they're all actual people with interesting backstories and like character moments, and it's really cool.
And I think the thing that really works out with all those characters that we see is everyone essentially has their own plot thread going on.
Mm-hmm.
So the way Godzilla opens up is we see 2 boats get destroyed. We don't even get the reveal about what the monster is until
No,
30 minutes into the
Which-
story.
I think is fucking sweet. By the way,
We do hear the name Godzilla mentioned, but it's mentioned in the same way like a legend about like a yokai's legend, like mentioned.
yeah.
It's not actually referring to anything specific.
I mean, very much in the way that like Gamera is mentioned at the beginning of that movie, where like the Eskimo tribe's like, yes, it might be Gamera the giant, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? That's like an ancient legend.
yeah, except I'm not sure if these people even had seen this thing before.
Yeah,
In either case, we have 2 boats that are destroyed and then a fishing boat. And it's right outside of this small island, Odo Island. And, you know, our first hook for Shinkichi, who's kind of our first character that has that first character moment, is that his brother's on that boat. And his brother ends up being the only survivor from that boat, only to die in a typhoon Godzilla stomp accident.
yeah. I don't think it was an accident. I think Godzilla meant to stomp on his house.
That might be fair. But yeah, so the first 30, 40 minutes are kind of this buildup of like what's happening to these
Mhm.
boats, what's happening to these people. And it's actually that gets the professor, the reporter, the professor's daughter, and Ogata like out on this island to go investigate
Well, Okada had already been sort of like
around.
around and adjacent because the movie opens and like Godzilla wrecks the ships and he goes, I gotta go tell the Coast Guard. He's like, I gotta go do my job.
And so, you know, a lot of what the film becomes up at that point is just like, okay, what's happening? Let's look into it. We're having hints that it's this thing. It's this 2 million year old species
Yeah.
from the Jurassic period.
With trilobites at its feet.
Yeah. And, you know, eventually we get to see Godzilla. And from that point on, it's solely like a let's prevent Godzilla from killing everything kind of
Mhm.
film. But I do think those first 40 minutes are really interesting.
Those first 40 minutes are really, really impactful. Because, like, yeah, I want a giant monster in my giant monster movie, of course. That's the point. But it's like, because we get so much time to build up and like create suspense for all the Godzilla stuff, it all has really poignant impact because there's less of it to be like bored of, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll go through it right now. Like I said, some of our characters have their own little emotional moments going on. For the professor, he is kind of concerned about killing Godzilla because for him, it's one of these moments of, A, he's a paleontologist and he doesn't want to see like this unique specimen be killed. But also he's very much coming from this perspective of, oh, this thing's radioactive
Proof. Like it,
because it survived a atomic bomb or an H bomb, a hydrogen bomb. So like we could learn from it and prevent essentially a national tragedy from happening
again.
And then there's his daughter and Ogata are having their own moment of they want to get married, but she's engaged to Dr. Sarasawa, who she doesn't like that. So there's kind of that underlying current. And then we have Dr. Sarasawa,
who has his own thing going on.
And we'll get to that in a little bit. But let's just say he's very much having his what have I done?
Yeah.
Kind of thing going on. But yeah, I think all the human character stuff is just really, really great. And it really does pull you through those moments that aren't just Godzilla stomping through a city. And I think the film wouldn't be as impactful without those.
No, it has to. They have to put in good performances, or else the Godzilla moments aren't as like somber and sad. And if those moments aren't somber and sad, while they are cool, it doesn't work. The whole like you lose the impact of all of the anti-nuke messaging. You really do.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's the characters that are delivering that message.
Yeah, I mean, the professor at the very end of the movie has one of the fucking hardest lines of this entire film. He's like, if we continue with hydrogen testing, like H-bomb testing underwater, we're just going to end up with another Godzilla, and what will we do then? Like,
Nothing.
You'll fucking die. All of you will die horribly, and it'll be really tragic.
And I think that's just poignant. It's just great. I think it's really what escalates this film up from just stupid monster movie into like an actual classic that's worth watching. So taking a moment to move on from something that's a little bit depressing and into something that's a little bit more positive. The practical effects in this film
are fucking insane.
Are great. There's two versions of Godzilla, essentially. There's what I believe is a puppet. I assume it's a hand puppet. It might not be, but I'll note right now, it looks distinctly worse than the other version.
Yeah, and I think it's like the first time that people see Godzilla, and it looks derpy.
Yeah, it's because the puppet is assumedly smaller, and so it's harder to do detail. And its eyes especially just look a little bit...
They're like googly eyes.
A little bit
They're like
funky.
off skew. They're really funny looking.
But the other version's a rubber suit, and the rubber suit looks amazing.
The rubber suit looks fucking great.
I mean, it's the classic Godzilla, and it looks good for a reason. But they use those two things for different types of shots. The puppet's used for close-ups, especially when they just need to show the torso, because I don't think there's a bottom for it. And that's especially used for atomic breath shots. So every time Godzilla fires its breath, it looks like they're forcing
steam or something,
smoke or something out of its mouth and having it do like a little fake roar. And then that's what they do the atomic breath effect with. And then the rubber suit's obviously used for all the big shots, stomping through the cities and stuff like that. Coming out of the water, which is really impressive, because assumedly that suit would fill with water.
Yeah.
But I thought both costumes look really cool. The design's very different from more modern Godzilla stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't know if you could tell.
No, I definitely noticed. I mean, just looking at the thing you have right there, like, I can tell it's Godzilla, but it is distinctly different.
Yeah, and you'll see the design changes over time. And if we continue to watch the franchise, you'll note that there's many different versions of the monster. With that being said, outside of the suits, the sets looked amazing.
Oh, they're so fucking good.
They're some of the best miniature sets I've seen.
Ever. Like, they are so incredible.
The way they crumble them is very effective, because I think they're just like, they have the guy in the rubber suit run into them and just stomp and destroy them.
Yeah.
They light stuff on fire while the guy's walking through them.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of minis doing like tanks and cars and stuff that I don't know how they were doing it. I assume they were like remote control or something.
I have no idea, but it looks really fucking cool.
And then they have like planes and rockets, stuff like that. It all looks great.
It all looks great. I really don't have any complaints about it.
The general kind of gist is this film really stretches its budget far.
Yeah.
Like, all of it looks amazing for the amount of money they had. And I think some of the thing that pads that is they have a lot of extras and just, like, shots where they'll layer everything. So you have Godzilla in the background and then real footage in the foreground, or vice versa.
I mean, I think one of the coolest uses of the effects, and one of the moments where I went, okay, no, this film is, like, incredible, is it's the first time we see Godzilla use his fucking atomic breath. He literally uses it, and there's, like, 2 giant electrical towers next to him, and they literally melt. They heat up and melt in front of you and start, like, dripping down metal. That's so fucking hard, because you know it's just a dude in a rubber suit. Like, I don't know how they did that effect, but it looks really fucking cool. And it is incredible. And then there's, like, all these scenes where, of course, they do the classic thing that I think we saw in Gamera and also in The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, where they set up a giant electric fence, basically, trying to stop the monster. Godzilla doesn't give a fuck. And he's just stomping through it, and there's sparks going everywhere.
No, he just walks through it.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's just so cool.
Yeah, they do have some, like, visual effects on top of the practical effects like that. And they also look great. I mean, for instance, the first time we see Godzilla, or at the very least, the form of Godzilla, not his head, but we see, like, a light coming from under the water. The very beginning of the film when he destroys some boats. And even that looks pretty decent.
It looks pretty fucking cool.
And I think it's important to note that, like, all the effects look great because, you know, we talked about how cool the human moments are, but the monster moments also have to be really good. And they are just very impressive.
They're so impressive. And even, like, you know, there are limitations to a guy in a rubber suit, considering, like, how floppy it should be. But they do a very good job at making the floppiness feel less like floppy rubber suit and more like fluid movements of, like, a giant creature. By, like, using his tail to smash stuff, or, like, him actually reaching down and picking stuff up with his hands and throwing things and shit like that. And it all looks really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, they do some stuff I know you were surprised by. You mentioned you were surprised by how much they use the tail.
Yeah.
He smashes a lot with it.
It's fucking cool. It's so cool. Or they'll do these really awesome shots where Godzilla will be, you know, it's like superimposed, but he'll be on one side of a building, and then you'll have like an apartment building, and you can see all the lights turn on and all the shadows of all the people running out of it while he's like stomping through. And just stuff like that is so, it's so sweet because it adds layers of realism to a situation that is just absolutely insane. It just makes it feel so real, which helps it be really sad.
Yeah.
Which is also cool.
Because again, that all that destruction's kept up by these somber shots of people just running away and suffering and dying.
Yeah.
I mean, people get straight up atomic breathed, and Bob was just
melt.
like, "Oh no!"
It's like, Jesus
And we see
Christ.
the shelters afterwards with
Yep.
the hospital people in them, and
People with like radiation poisoning, they're just keeling over dead. Children crying because their moms are dying.
yeah, it's really makes everything hit home,
Yeah.
which is kind of the point.
It's very much the point.
And
And
it's-
you know what? It worked.
It works. Now, all of that's also underscored by music.
Yeah.
Basically, there's only really, I think it's one song. It's the Godzilla theme.
Which goes hard.
And then they have like different segments and versions of it for different parts of the movie. I think the only really distinct one that might not be the Godzilla theme is the one they play whenever we see boats. But I think that might be just a different refrain.
Is it?
It might be. I'm not entirely sure. And then there's one scene where we get some children singing like a prayer. But yeah, not a lot of music in it except for the Godzilla theme. And it's just great.
It's really good.
I just want to put that out there.
I'd never heard it before. I
It's,
probably had, but I just didn't know what it was, but it's really good.
A lot of what? I'd say horns
Mm-hmm.
and strings.
I like it a lot.
Very orchestral and epic sounding.
It does sound very epic.
And it's just, I think, the perfect song to go with this whole film. Like, I think the movie would have been kind of ruined if they did, like, the modern type of soundtrack where they have just over-the-top music, maybe some popular songs at the time. And so I think taking that segment of, okay, we're just going to have our leitmotif for the character
Mm-hmm.
and have that be it is a good decision.
And I don't think they overuse it or anything either. Like, it's only there when it needs to be. And it's there sparingly, for real.
Yeah, only the most dramatic moments with, I think, Godzilla's character.
And I think that also adds to the somberness of it, because otherwise there is no music. And that's sort of, I don't want to say dreary, but it is,
Quiet.
quiet. There you go.
That being said, is there anything else you want to talk about specifically with production stuff? Or do you want to kind of talk about Dr. Serizawa in the end of this film?
Oh, we could talk about the end because I have a complaint.
Okay. So we kind of mentioned Serizawa has his own thing going on. And that's kind of like an undercurrent throughout the whole film. Is like he's up to his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And very clearly there's something happening with him. Essentially, he is a scientist. He served in World War II. That's how he lost his eye. And assumedly after that, he started researching oxygen. And he ended up essentially accidentally inventing, he calls it the oxygen destroyer.
Yeah.
Which, as the movie sets up, is essentially supposed to be like the worst weapon of all time. Like multiple times worse than H-bombs and A-bombs and stuff like that. And he's essentially set up as this tortured scientist who's like, I have made the most dangerous thing ever, but just like nuclear stuff, it could be very helpful to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to release this, the governments of the world would use it as a weapon, and that would be on me.
Yeah.
And so his character has very much this back and forth of like, I don't know, tortured genius kind of thing going on. And obviously his buildup is they eventually call on him to destroy Godzilla with the, essentially, I'm going to call it a bomb he's made.
Yeah, I mean, it basically is, yeah.
Of which he essentially sacrifices himself to set off.
Yeah, and I think the coolest part about his whole arc is that we get an inkling of it at the very beginning of the movie when the doctor's daughter goes and sees him with a reporter, and he shows her what he's created, but we, the audience, are not shown anything.
No.
We're just shown her horrific reaction to what he's created. And so by the time we get back around to it, at that point, I'd forgotten about this entirely because I'd been distracted by Godzilla stomping through Tokyo. And we get back to it, and we finally get to see what he's created. And it essentially just like kills an entire tank full of fish in an instant.
With
turns them to
something,
bones.
what, the size of like
Like a rock. Like literally a little pebble.
probably smaller than a pearl.
Yeah. And so he's going through this whole thing of like, if I release this and the government uses a weapon, that's on me. So he was like, even if I burn all the research and I live, I will be coerced to use it again if I let you all take it. And so him, the professor's daughter, and Ogata are basically like at a deadlock of like, well, if you don't do anything, Godzilla's going to kill everybody.
But if you do something,
this will kill everybody. So he makes like the coolest choice and just goes down there in his diving suit and cuts the cable when he sets it off. So he dies with the information, and so does Godzilla.
yeah.
And that's pretty fucking hard.
It really is a good way to end this film, and I think it really does bring that whole nuclear war kind of analogy to its conclusion
Yeah.
by setting up like this, theoretical worst thing, and it's like, no matter what, you can't let that get out.
I mean, it's the whole thing with mutually assured destruction, right?
Oh, yeah, and I mean, the professor then comes in with his monologue that basically underlines that point.
Yeah. Okay.
What was your complaint? Because
I
you
have
said
one
you did
complaint.
have one.
I have one small complaint. Since now we've told everyone how the movie ends, Godzilla fucking dies.
Which, sorry, guys, by the way.
Yeah. It's cool. It looks really sweet because you see the rubber suit guy and then it turns into a fucking skeleton. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Why are there more Godzilla movies? Godzilla's fucking dead.
Yeah.
That has ruined it. I'm
What do you
mad about
mean?
it now.
Why are you mad?
What is the next Godzilla film going to be? Godzilla's dead.
Godzilla will be in it. So
Huh?
Godzilla is not like necessarily one creature. It's a species.
Oh my god. No.
And also, not all Godzilla films are in the same timeline.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I thought that this was like a continuous thingy. Is it not?
The Showa era is a continuous thing. The Heisei is its own era, I believe. And then the new, like, King Kong, Godzilla ones are their own timeline as
And
well.
then -1, the new one is its own thing?
I think that's its own thing as well, too.
Okay.
But yeah, Godzilla does die at the end of this one. I believe the Godzilla shown in the second film is a different specimen.
Oh, totally fine. I'm okay then. I was so mad. I was like, they're really going to kill Godzilla and then be like, Godzilla 2, though.
No, I don't think they write it off. I think it's like a different version of the species.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
I was so angry.
I thought There
Thank
you go.
you.
There's your
Thank you.
explanation. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
Or just
man.
leave it? Yeah, I'm sure there's tons of people who've talked about this in more detail than we have.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
there's probably entire
Papers and
yeah.
theses. Yeah, it's a great movie. I would highly recommend it. We're kind of just watching it for fun.
Yeah.
With that being said, do you have recommendations here?
Sure. If you're interested in kaiju movies, I know we watched 2 other ones this season, and while I like them both, you should watch this one instead.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say if you can only watch one,
It's this one.
it's
Watch this
Godzilla.
one. You have to. It is far and above the best version of a kaiju film that we've seen on the show. And I'm sure we'll watch kaiju movies eventually in another category somewhere, or maybe we'll finish Godzilla. I don't know.
I have all the Showa stuff.
Yeah, so we could start it.
Don't know if we'll watch the Heisei stuff. It's hard to get your hands on.
Oh, really?
There's a bunch of production right issues.
So, I mean, like, first off, kaiju movie. Second off, practical effects. My God, are they fucking cool. If you're into minis or any sort of practical effect like that, this movie has it in spades, and it all looks awesome. There's literally only one thing that I thought looked a little funny. Well, actually, 2. The hand puppet looks a little funny, but I got over that.
And it's only certain shots of the
It's
hand
only certain
puppet.
shots. And then the helicopter looks a little funky. That's it. Because you can sort of tell. But other than that, it looks incredible. If you want a sad movie, I know this is an extremely somber piece in retrospect and in the moment, but like it hit a lot harder than I expected it to, and I thought that was very, very interesting for a kaiju movie, which I did not expect. So I think those are my recommendations.
Okay. Like Bob said, if you want a kaiju film, I think this is kind of like the one you should watch. Kind of hard to get around that. It's the most famous. It's great. If you want a Japanese film, I think, to watch, especially a black and white Japanese film, I think this is a really good one. Probably one of the more famous films to come out of Japan, up there with like Seven Samurai and stuff. It's a very different film, but definitely worth it. But I think the best and most interesting kind of recommendation I can give here is if you're looking for something that really deals with nuclear war and kind of post-war mindset for World War II, I think this is an interesting look into that. Because we don't really see a lot of stuff nowadays that is such a good reflection of that. And then, obviously, if you want a Godzilla film, I think a lot of people have seen 1 or 2 different films, but
Yeah.
not everyone I know who's familiar with Godzilla has seen the original. So if you're familiar with it, go watch the original. It's
really good.
Maybe not your cup of tea. It's definitely
Sure.
not everyone's.
That's totally fair.
But it's worth seeing where everything started.
I mean, I think the best part about watching this movie watching this movie actually with the cultural zeitgeist of kaiju movies is it subverts a lot of those expectations in really cool ways. So I think if you're looking for something like you've seen other kaiju movies and you haven't seen this one, watch it anyway because it's actually quite refreshing and really cool.
That being said, you want to rate it?
I mean,
5?
7?
You can't give it a 7.
5.
You can give it a 5.
Yeah,
though.
no, this movie is fantastic. Like I said earlier, I totally get why it spawned like a huge franchise, why it is so widely regarded nowadays. It deserves all of that praise at 100%, for real. Like I really, really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was really great. And the fact that it has a lot of deeper themes that I did not expect and was also a very tragic and sad movie while still allowing me to have a good time and not feel like atrocious after is really cool.
Yeah. Same boat here. It's just great. Like, it's hard for me to point out things that are bad about it.
Yeah.
Because I think everything is fairly well done. It feels very artful and tasteful, especially in the modern day where we've stepped away from some of the tragedies by, like 70 years. So I think it's very well produced. It deals with cool themes, and it's got a cool monster.
Yeah.
So 5. On that note, though, I guess we're going to go to outtakes if we have any.
Yeah, that's probably a good bit. I think there are a couple in there, actually, that are pretty funny.
We marked 1 or 2. I'm not sure if they'll go in, but
I think there were like 7 or 8, actually.
we'll be back in a second.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in a minute. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the outtake section for this episode of Beware the Board. I hope you're enjoying our review of Godzilla from 1954 so far. I really love this film. I think it's super duper great, really well executed, and very, very poignant. But without further ado, let's get into the outtakes. This first clip is me trying to make a joke and Ben just shutting me down. So that's how he lost his eye, looking at his own experiments.
No, he lost it during the war. They told us, Bob. You gotta pay attention.
I'm making jokes.
You gotta pay attention to
I
the movie.
fucking hate you, Ben. I'm making a joke. Calm down. Jesus. Also, he didn't even show us. He didn't show us anyone except for her. We don't even get to know.
It's a surprise still. They don't want to tell us yet. It's called a dramatic reveal.
But I want to know now.
Well, they're building up to it later.
I don't care.
Well, suck it.
This next clip is our reaction to a very, very cool scene involving a train. Oh, that's actually sweet as fuck. Oh my god. That's awesome.
Not if you're on the train.
Well, okay. You fucking bitch. That's not what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. This is a cool fucking scene, man. This next clip is our reaction to probably my favorite scene in the entire film. Oh my god. Is that fucking...
Just atomic breath.
No, okay. That was so fucking cool.
Pretty great, right?
No, that was so badass, dude. Like, I thought he was going to have atomic breath, and I knew that was coming, but fucking melting the steel beams like that? Oh my god, bro's just destroying civilization. Bro.
It's not really great for the wooden houses.
No, it's not, but it's fucking sweet, bro. Look at him go. Damn. That was fucking awesome.
All right, man, we want you to get in this rubber suit and then walk through this flaming set.
I'm sure you'll be just fine. It can be flame retardant. Oh my god, Godzilla just killed those people.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been killing people the whole time, but he just, like, actually atomic flame breath those people to death.
Yeah. They melted.
That was awesome. This next clip is me finally making a realization about this film. Insane of a man to do that. Okay, he's just fucking crunching that shit. Oh my god! I did not want to see their POVs. They fall to their fucking deaths, Ben. What the fuck?
The first Godzilla film is not fun, and I think in the ways people think it is.
No, it's not. This is a horrific experience.
Wow. It's almost like it came out of a country that got nuked twice 10 years ago.
I don't... Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the outtakes. Do we have any announcements, Ben?
The next episode's episode 100.
Woohoo!
Ooh, that's wild that we got that far.
It is wild that we got that far.
I know we put out like actual more episodes than that. But
Yeah.
For official episodes of the podcast. So that's really
Numbered
cool.
episodes of the podcast.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think we're going to start focusing on Unholy Trinity and like convention prep coming up here.
Yeah.
So look out for that. Otherwise, check us out wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, other podcast specific platforms. If you're checking us out there, please give us a quick review or a rating. That really helps us out getting seen by other people there. You could also recommend us to a friend. That's a really good way for other people to check out the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We really appreciate that. Otherwise, you can see us over at YouTube, which, while not the best place for audio-only content, is really nice for showing us some support. It's one of the few places we can gauge like how many people are listening because of likes and subscriptions and views and stuff like that. Otherwise, YouTube does have a couple interesting tools for you all. There's a search button, which lets you search key terms in all our videos. So in case you're looking to see if we've covered a specific movie, that's an easy way to do that. There's also a bell button, which lets you get notified whenever we post a new video. For instance, if we're posting something out of order, that'll tell you. Additionally, if you hit the bell hard enough, Godzilla might yell at it.
You son of a bitch.
Otherwise, the big thing with YouTube is it's one of the two major places to communicate with us at. You can do that in the comment section of a specific video, or you can go over to Twitter at Beware the Board and go talk to Bob. Maybe investigate some radioactive footprints, stuff like that.
Yeah, you really got me that got me good. That was a deep cut, Ben. I forgot about that until you just mentioned it. I think it's even in the outtakes because it's funny as fuck.
We'll see.
Like Ben said, check us out on Twitter at Beware the Board. It's where we post updates about the show, information about the show. Basically, if there's anything you learn about the show, it goes on our Twitter. On Mondays, I post a spoiler post for that week's worth of episodes, which is a hidden movie cover you can reveal. So you can watch the film before we do, so don't even listen to the episodes. You don't get any spoilers or being vague about stuff. You know what we're talking about. Then on Fridays, or whatever other day an episode goes live, I always post a link to the episode whenever it goes up. So if you've missed an upload or know something went up, there's always a link there. Last thing, Ben, check us out on TikTok, @BeWereTheBoard, and on YouTube Shorts. We do short form content on those platforms. So if you want to support us there and like short form content, check us out @BeWereTheBoard on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts. Ben, I think that's it.
All right, we'll see you guys either next episode where we're announcing our categories for the next season,
Yeah.
or on next season for our first movie episode.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. My categories are so crazy.
Mine are stupid.
Fantastic.
Everyone's favorite.
See you guys next time.